Prosperity isn't a linear climb. Every chart you have ever glanced at that depicts a steady, diagonal rise toward the top right corner is essentially a work of fiction. In the real world, the trajectory of a person's financial existence moves through tectonic shifts. You endure long, grueling periods where the needle doesn't seem to budge a single millimeter, and then, suddenly, you hit a specific gate and everything accelerates in a heartbeat. There are three of these gateways. Three distinct checkpoints that the vast majority of self-made individuals navigate successfully, while the people who remain stuck in a paycheck-to-paycheck loop either fail to recognize them or stumble exactly when they should be sprinting. Consider a 31-year-old nurse in Des Moines who brings home $62,000 a year. She just cleared the second gateway. Meanwhile, a 50-year-old creative director in Seattle making $250,000 has never even reached the first. A decade from now, their bank statements will tell a story that completely defies their current salaries. This is because your paycheck is not the architect of your net worth. Today, I am going to break down all three. If you can identify these stages and prepare for them with total focus, you will shave decades off the journey that most people consider a life sentence. If you ignore them, your income will eventually become irrelevant. Let me explain the mechanics. The first checkpoint is reaching $10,000 in deployed capital. Note that I did not say $10,000 in your savings account. That distinction is the difference between surviving and building. Saving is defensive. It is money sitting in a vault, waiting for a crisis. Investing is offensive. It is money out in the field, working for you. Until you have at least $10,000 actually committed to assets, whether that is a low-cost index fund, a diversified brokerage account, or a real estate vehicle, you are still standing on the sidelines. You are in the pre-game lobby. The reason 10,000 is such a pivotal number is rooted in psychology. Below this threshold, the power of growth is essentially a ghost. If you put $2,000 into the market and it grows by 10%, you have gained $200. In the context of a modern life, that does not feel like a victory. It does not pay the mortgage. It does not buy you a week of freedom. It is essentially invisible. Because it is invisible, it is uninspiring. It provides no feedback loop, no dopamine hit, and no sense of progress. But once you cross that $10,000 mark, a 10% gain is $1,000. Now we are talking about something tangible. That is a month of groceries and utilities. That is a weekend getaway paid for by your capital, not your sweat. It is the exact moment your brain stops viewing money as a reward for labor and starts viewing it as a tool that generates its own value. That mental shift is the spark that starts the entire fire. The reason most people never see the other side of this checkpoint is what I call the invisible plateau. It is that frustrating space between 0 and 10,000 where your efforts feel futile. The growth is too slow to notice. The balance is too small to provide security, and the temptation to spend it on a minor emergency is nearly overwhelming. The only way to survive the plateau is to remove your hands from the wheel. You cannot rely on willpower. You have to rely on systems. You need automated transfers that move money before you have a chance to miss it. The people who win this stage are not the ones with the most self-control. They are the ones with the best settings on their banking apps. Think about the long-term math for a moment. If you commit $10,000 to the market at age 25 and never add another cent, assuming an average historical return, that single act turns into six figures by the time you reach retirement age. That is the power of hitting the gate once. Now, imagine what happens when you refuse to stop there. That leads us directly into the second checkpoint. The second checkpoint is hitting a total net worth of $100,000. Charlie Munger, the legendary strategist, famously remarked that the first 100,000 is a total nightmare. He was not complaining. He was describing the physics of finance. To get from 0 to 100,000, you are doing all the work. If you are investing $500 a month at a 7% return, it is going to take you over a decade to reach that first six-figure milestone. But here is where the math gets incredible. To go from 100,000 to 200,000 using the exact same monthly contribution and the same rate of return takes only about 5 years. You are getting the same result in half the time with zero extra effort. This is the stage where the relationship between you and your money undergoes a fundamental transformation. Below six figures, you are the horse pulling the carriage. Your overtime, your side hustles, and your frugality are the only things keeping the wheels turning. But once you clear that $100,000 hurdle, the carriage starts to sprout its own engine. Eventually, usually somewhere around the $150,000 mark, a miracle occurs. Your portfolio's annual growth will begin to exceed the amount of money you are physically capable of contributing from your salary. You are no longer the primary driver of your wealth. Your money has taken over the steering wheel. If you are finding this breakdown useful, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It helps us keep the lights on and get this information to more people. However, this is also the most dangerous moment in your entire financial life. When people hit that $100,000 mark, they start to feel a sense of arrival. They look at their balance and think, I have made it. And that feeling of success often triggers a very specific type of self-sabotage, lifestyle creep. Suddenly, the mid-sized sedan doesn't feel nice enough. The apartment needs an extra bedroom. The dinners out become a nightly occurrence rather than a weekly treat. In isolation, a few extra $100 a month and spending seems harmless. But when you add it all up, you are often siphoning off $1,000 or more every month that used to be fueling your growth. Pulling that capital out of the system at the exact moment it has finally gained momentum is like slamming on the brakes of a plane just as it is about to leave the runway. The cost of that decision is staggering. If you hit $100,000 at 35 and decide to inflate your lifestyle instead of maintaining your momentum, you are effectively robbing your future self of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not because of a stock market crash, but because you let a fleeting feeling of wealth kill the engine of actual wealth. The individuals who navigate this gate correctly do something that seems almost insane to the average observer. When they reach six figures, they don't buy a watch or a new car. They actually tighten their belt. They take that sense of excitement and use it to increase their investment rate by another 5%. They realize that they are in the highest leverage window of their life, and they refuse to let it go to waste. They understand that the goal isn't to look rich today. It's to be untouchable tomorrow. This brings us to the third and final gateway, which is the point where your passive yield eclipses your essential cost of living. This is the only true definition of freedom. Most people spend their lives chasing a phantom net worth figure, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, without ever stopping to realize that wealth is not a fixed sum. It is a relationship. It is the ratio between what your assets produce and what your life requires. You achieve independence the moment your portfolio generates enough interest, dividends, or capital gains to pay for your non-negotiable monthly obligations without you ever having to trade another hour of your life for a paycheck. For a person who has kept their overhead lean and only needs $4,000 a month to cover the basics, their freedom number is remarkably attainable. Using the standard sustainable withdrawal rate of 4%, they need roughly $1.2 million invested to reach total autonomy. To someone starting at zero, that sounds like an insurmountable mountain. But remember the physics we just discussed in the first two checkpoints. If you clear the first hurdle in your 20s and the second in your mid-30s, the sheer velocity of compounding makes that final figure a mathematical inevitability by your late 40s. It is not a matter of luck, it is a matter of trajectory. The hidden trap in this third stage, however, has nothing to do with the stock market and everything to do with your own behavior. Most people never cross the finish line because they are running on a treadmill that keeps getting faster. As their income climbs, their baseline climb right along with it. A professional earning $200,000 a year who has convinced themselves they need a massive mortgage, 2 luxury leased vehicles, and private club memberships might have baseline expenses of $12,000 a month. That person needs a portfolio of nearly $4 million just to stop working. Meanwhile, a middle manager making $80,000 who has kept their life simple and their expenses at $3,000 a month only needs $900,000 to be free. The lower earner will actually retire decades earlier than the high earner. This is perhaps the most offensive truth in personal finance. The fastest way to buy your freedom is not to maximize your paycheck, but to minimize the denominator of your life. Every single dollar you can permanently trim from your recurring monthly needs doesn't just save you a dollar today. It removes $25 from the total amount of capital you need to accumulate. You are literally pulling the finish line closer to you with every spending decision you make. If this perspective is shifting the way you think about your bank account, consider subscribing to the channel. Now, I want to move from theory to execution. I want you to take 4 specific actions this week to determine exactly where you stand on this map. First, you need to conduct a brutal audit of your invested assets. Open your apps, log into your portals, and find the total sum of money that is actually deployed in the market. Do not include the equity in your home. Do not include the estimated value of your car, and certainly do not include the cash sitting in your checking account. We are looking for workhorse capital only. If that number is below $10,000, you have one mission and one mission only. Get there as fast as humanly possible. Stop worrying about advanced tax strategies or complex crypto plays. Just automate $50 or $100 a week into a broad market fund and don't look back. You are currently in the pre-game lobby, and your only goal is to get onto the field. Second, if you have already surpassed that $10,000 mark and are approaching the 6-figure milestone, I want you to look at your spending history over the last 24 months. Be honest with yourself. Has your lifestyle expanded as your portfolio has grown? Did you trade in a perfectly functional vehicle for a status symbol? Did you move into a better neighborhood just because you could afford the higher rent? If the answer is yes, you have caught a case of lifestyle inflation, and it is actively poisoning your compounding engine. Identify one major recurring expense that you added during this period of growth and eliminate it this month. Take that exact dollar amount and redirect it into your brokerage account. You need to prove to yourself that you are the one in control of your capital, not your impulses. Third, I want you to calculate your survival number. This is not what you spend when you're out celebrating. It's the absolute baseline required to keep the lights on, the fridge full, and the roof over your head. Rent, insurance, basic groceries, and essential transport. Take that monthly number and multiply it by 300. That is your personalized freedom target. That is the number that represents the end of mandatory labor for you. Write it down on a piece of paper and tape it somewhere you will see it every morning. When your goals are abstract, your efforts are inconsistent. But when your goal is a specific, cold, hard number, it changes the way you look at every $5 coffee and every $100 dinner. It stops being a purchase and starts being a delay in your arrival at the finish line. Fourth, you need to map the gap. Look at where you are today and where that freedom number sits. Calculate exactly how many months it will take to bridge that distance based on your current rate of contribution and an average 8% return. If that timeline makes you uncomfortable, do not lower your expectations. Do not tell yourself that freedom is only for other people. Instead, change the variables. Either find a way to increase the input or find a way to lower the baseline. Most people flinch when the math gets hard, but the math is the only thing that will ever set you free. Remember that nurse I mentioned at the beginning? She doesn't have a glamorous title. She doesn't have a 6-figure salary. But she understood these 3 gateways with total clarity. She hit the $10,000 mark at 26 by living like a college student for an extra 2 years. She crossed the $100,000 net worth threshold by age 31 because she refused to upgrade her lifestyle when she got her first major raise. And because she has kept her baseline expenses incredibly low, she is on track to hit her freedom ratio before she turns 50. She isn't lucky, she is intentional. Meanwhile, that creative director in Seattle is effectively a slave to his own high income. He earns a fortune, but he spends a fortune to maintain the appearance of being wealthy. He hasn't even reached the first gateway because his invested assets are non-existent. It's all tied up in depreciating toys and high-interest debt. He is running a race he can never win because he doesn't realize the gates even exist. Wealth is not an accident of birth or a stroke of luck. It is a structural achievement. It is built on 3 specific thresholds. The first 10,000 invested, the first 100,000 in net worth, and the crossover point where passive income meets your baseline needs. Everything else you hear in the financial media, the daily stock tips, the political drama, the crypto hype, is just noise designed to keep you distracted from the math. The only question that carries any weight is this. Which of the three gateways are you currently approaching, and are you moving toward it with purpose, or are you just drifting? The map is in your hands now. The architecture of your financial future isn't a mystery. It's a blueprint that has already been drawn. Most people spend their lives wandering through a fog of vague aspirations, hoping that if they just work hard enough and wait long enough, security will eventually materialize. But hope is not a strategy. True prosperity is the result of navigating these three thresholds with the precision of a pilot following a flight path. When you strip away the complexity and the jargon, you are left with a simple reality. You are either building momentum or you are bleeding it. There is no middle ground. If you are currently sitting below that $10,000 mark, your focus must be singular. You are in a race against your own psychology. You need to prove to yourself that you can create a surplus and, more importantly, that you can put that surplus to work. Once you cross that line, the game shifts. It becomes about endurance. It becomes about resisting the siren song of a more expensive life so that your capital can reach that magical $100,000 crossover point. Once you reach six figures, you aren't just a person with some savings. You are the owner of a productive machine. That machine is small, and it is fragile, but it is alive. If you feed it, it will grow until it is large enough to support you. If you starve it to pay for a better car or a bigger house, it will wither, and you will find yourself back at the starting line, wondering where the time went. The final stage, the freedom ratio, is the ultimate prize. It is the moment you step off the treadmill for good. But as we've seen, that prize is often closer than it appears. Not because the mountain is shorter, but because you have the power to lower the peak. By mastering your expenses and understanding that every dollar of baseline cost requires $25 of capital to replace, you gain a level of control that most millionaires never achieve. You stop being a passenger in your own life and start being the architect. This journey is not easy, but it is simple. It requires a willingness to be misunderstood by people who are still trapped in the smooth curve lie. It requires the discipline to look at a growing bank balance and see it as a tool rather than a shopping spree. And it requires the courage to face your own numbers, no matter how uncomfortable they might be today. Whether you are a teacher in the Midwest or a contractor in a tech hub, the math remains the same. The gateways do not care about your job title or your social status. They only care about your actions. You now have the map. You know exactly where the checkpoints are located. You understand the traps that wait at each stage, and you have the specific tools needed to bypass them. The only variable left in the equation is your own execution. Don't let this be just another video you watched while scrolling. Don't let these insights fade into the background of your daily routine.